not get taken out. It wasn't the Mossad. It was a blown fuse. It wasn't like my pager went off and then poof. Nobody sent a ping to my computer to blow it up. It's just kind of what happened. It's a blown fuse. I had the heater going on with the same. Anyway, so we need to understand that this isn't the worst case scenario in Gaza. And unfortunately, I don't know, euthanasia means a good death. This wasn't necessarily a good death, but this was an orderly, managed decline, as it were. And with Elon Musk there, it's going to be a full ideological operation going in to Gaza, a re-education, as it will. And there'll be a lot of quiet murders and re-education camps and the whole thing. But the alternative wasn't pretty either. The alternative was no plan. The alternative was not only squalor, but rubble. And we weren't going to let in any sort of construction in order to build. So, Trump is like at least smart enough to lead with jobs. There'll be jobs, because before there wouldn't be any jobs. There would not be any jobs because we would not let development happen, because any sort of development could also be the conditions of an assault on Israel, and we were not going to let that happen. So this is a way in which development can happen. It's just not going to happen on the Gazans' terms, the Palestinians' terms. It'll happen on the terms of the U.S., which is better than it happening on the terms of Israel, but none of it's great. We just need to be honest that this is not the worst option, even if you're a Gazan. And I don't know if we'll ever hear an honest Gazan, but even if you're an honest Gazan, like if you just want to be able to live your life and live your family, like this is fine. This is in the realm of fine. Now people are saying, where have you been for the last week? 7 days. It's not like I took a lot of time off. I had to, I cut my hair because I was interviewing for a job at my kids, my junior high school. I have a kid who's in junior high school, 6th grade. Not junior high school, middle school. I went to a junior high school at 7 and 8. She goes to a middle school, which is 6, 7, 8. She's in 6th grade right now. And they were looking for a soccer coach. And that's what I can do. And so I interviewed for the job to be her middle school soccer coach. Interviews are funny because I'm kind of an impressive guy in a way. I can do a lot of things, but I can't come off that way all of the time because it intimidates the people I'm around, especially as a public school setting. This is a city, poor district public school setting. So I need to be very careful with the words I use and how I present myself and all of that way. And so interviews are always a little bit perilous because, like I said, I can't come off too intimidating. I have to be overqualified, but not be too intimidating. And so that's a lot of my life. I'm trying to be overqualified because I'm not the safest Negro. So if I'm just qualified, they'll pick someone safer. But if I'm overqualified, they can't really pick someone but then I can't be too intimidating because that just makes people nervous. So I got the job. I am my kids' soccer coach, girls team. Girls teams are interesting and they've had a hard time sustaining a girls coach in this poor district because of the way in which the girls would just kind of complain about any conditioning they had to do. And it's funny because it's easier to actually sustain a girls soccer team in a suburban district because those girls have dads. And in a way, they don't have a gender ideology which covers for them doing like hard things. So you'll get like, white suburban swimmers and soccer players. But in the hood, it's a little bit harder because the variety of gender ideology that's reached isn't really great. Now, there are going to be some outliers in terms of basketball, and there are going to be some outliers. But the struggle remains. It's funny because they had a few Latino coaches before who kept quitting because the girls would start complaining about the condition and they didn't want to be hard to girls. Because it turns out that the high school that this school feeds into, and even the junior high school itself, has a very good has a very good men's team, but doesn't have a very good women's team. I'm going to do a whole show on this, a different show. But the men, it's because they could be harder on the boys without them kind of complaining and quitting, and they had a hard time being harder on the girls without them complaining and quitting. But it's just, you got to give them a little bit more of a boutique experience. And it's a different dance, but I actually like coaching girls sports. I like coaching, girls sports full of Black and Latino kids, even when who aren't necessarily athletes, right? Right. This gets a little bit more complicated with basketball, but it's the same sort of struggle. It's a similar sort of struggle. It's funny that it's harder to do this in a city with even a good boys team than it is in the suburbs. Harder to keep women athletes on the team in a competitive way. So anyway, that's something I can talk about in a different time, and I will do a show on it. Well, once I get farther into the season with these young women. But even, Gilbert Arenas said that he had a much easier time with his son than his daughter. And just with sport. Now, me, I don't really have a hard time being hard on girls. And I'm pretty smart that I can kind of finesse the practice so that they learn the skills without feeling oppressed. And so that's my skill. By the way, this is a show, this was going to be on Gaza, and I did first part, and I just explained that this wasn't the worst case scenario. This wasn't the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, you have 2 million people and rubble and no infrastructure. And it used to be an open air prison with dicey infrastructure because they wouldn't let construction materials in, but through a blockade. But now it's an open, it's the same thing except no infrastructure and rubble. So people are just going to die every day unless we came up with a plan. And the plan is the U.S. annexation. So Israeli rule through a U.S. proxy, and that's better than naked Israeli rule because they would just mow them all down. And so Trump Tower Gaza is where we are, and we're just going to have to deal with that. And there's a lot of ways to bring peace to the Middle East, or a kind of order to it. This is the New York version. This is the Giuliani. This is the Giuliani version of Gaza. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just kind of his. All right, take care.